today I'm going to be using these denim scraps and repurposing these wooden vintage handles. And we're going to make a handbag. So we're just going to get right into it. I am going to manipulate each one of these fabric squares. So I didn't want just a flat patchwork bag, and I actually saw this technique on Facebook. A guy made a pair of pants for himself and his dog, but I didn't know if I wanted to do that many squares where I was going to make a pair of pants, so I thought I would start small. I'm using about 30 pieces. Let me show you a close-up of what I'm doing. I am taking each one of these squares, I'm folding it in half to find the center, then I fold it back, and I have about 1/4 of an inch pleat. I'm going to do that to all 4 sides of all of the squares. And then I do a quick little stitch, and without pulling it out and clipping threads, I just force the next one under so that they're all connected. I save on thread and save time clipping. This part took the longest. It took me maybe 2 hours or something like that, or maybe not that long, but definitely more than an hour to do all of these squares. Once I got all of the squares pleated, make this nice little bubble. Now I'm going to connect the squares end to end, and I'm alternating between light and dark. I was doing rows of about 4 squares. Some of them I ended up doing 5 because while I was making this, I decided that I did not want to go straight across, but I thought it would be better to make these diamonds. So I'm going to go diagonal with my squares. Okay, so now once I get all my rows together, now I'm going to stack the rows, and they are going to alternate as well. So where the lights will touch the darks, darks touch the lights. So I started off by pinning together the seams, pinning together the pleats, and I found that I had to stretch it a little bit to make them match up. And that was a lot of pins, and it was taking a lot of time. So I just decided I would just go ahead and just start sewing. So I would just, with my hands, no pins or anything, make sure that that first seam lined up, sew up to that seam, make sure that the next seam lined up, and then just keep going that way. The pleats are a little bit off, but the bag is so, just full and puffy that I don't think it really makes a difference in the end. This is what we end up with. Cute little patchwork denim piece, lights, darks, medium wash. While I was putting that together, I decided that I didn't just want to have a front and back of the bag meet, that I wanted to put in the seam in between the two a little piping. So I cut these strips. I'm sewing them together end to end. Then I'm going to get this piping. This goes in pillows quite often. Most often, this is where you'll find it. And so I'm going to first encase the piping. Just going to sew straight down. Now I am going to kind of shape the bag. I know I want it kind of round, so just gonna cut right along this last square, and I'm using the points of the square as a guide. So I'm going from one point to another. Then I do the same thing on the bottom, and then for the top I need it to be flat, so I'm gonna cut a straight line on the top. Now we're going back to the sewing machine. I am now thinking about the closure for the bag. This is the issue when you are working without a pattern and without a real plan. I'm halfway through, and now I'm realizing, I need a way to close this. So I have this strip. I am just making sure that it fits into the handle. Okay. Now I'm going to make sure that it fits on the bag exactly where I had it folded. I center it at the top and I'm going to just sew straight across. You see that I have the ends folded in because I don't want any raw edges on this bag. I want a very finished look. It's already kind of a slouchy, you know, boho feel for this bag. A little bit hippie, very 90s. And so now I'm going to take the front, put it on top of the back, make sure that everything is matching up. And I want to make sure that the opening of the bag is big enough for me to, like, you know, reach in and grab whatever it is I'm going to need. So I'm pinning where I want to stop the stitches. I'm getting ready to sew all the way around the bag. So I have to trim away at this trim. I just don't want all that excess fabric on the inside. I'm going to take my piping and I'm going to sandwich it right in between the front and back of the bag and sew all the way around. I have a special foot on here that allows me to get very close to the piping, and we're just going to make our way around. Once I get all the way around to the end, I am going to start on the inside of the bag. So I have this canvas, this natural colored canvas. It will be nice to have a light colored inside for this bag since it'll be so deep and so dark. A lighter color is going to help you find what it is you need to find. So I'm going to lay this on top. I'm going to trace around lightly with a pencil, remove the bag, and start to cut. I'm going to take that same fabric and going to cut a pocket. Just using this edge that was left over and not like really measuring anything. I'm going to sew the sides and the bottom of this pocket. I turn it inside out and I'm going to turn the top of it down a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch, maybe a 1/4 inch, somewhere in between there, and top stitch it, making sure I reinforce the ends. Next, press my pocket nice and flat. I'm going to take the inside of the bag, I'm going to fold it in half, crease it. Take my pocket, fold it in half, place it right on the crease. Now we know that the pocket is centered. Stick some pins in the corners, back to the machine, and we're going to sew all the way around the pocket. I'm comparing the bag to the lining so that I can start and stop these stitches at the same place. I'm going all the way around. I'm reinforcing the whole lining because it's also annoying when your lining tears and you start losing things in your bag. Once I make it all the way around, I tuck the main part of the bag inside of the lining and I'm lining up these corners, and then I'm going to stitch the sides closed using pins to keep everything lined up. I'm gonna stitch those corners down. Once it's stitched, I pull the bag out, I flip everything over, tuck the lining in, and now we're looking like we're near the end. I go back to my ironing board, do a little pressing to just keep everything nice and crisp because these are the finishing touches. You want this to be nice and clean and straight. I tuck this tab all the way down inside, and I'm realizing now that I am going to have to hand sew this. Now I'm going to put my snaps in. These magnetic snaps probably came from Hobby Lobby, maybe like $2 or $3, probably $3. So what you do is you get yourself a nice X-Acto knife and you mark the center of the bag. You place the snap on that center point and you push the X-Acto knife through, making 2 small slits so that you can slide the back of the snap in. Once you get those in place, there's a metal plate that goes on the back. Slide that on. Press the prongs down. You could do it to anything hard. Now it's time for me to slide my handles on, and hand sew them into place. I like this technique of manipulating the fabric with these tiny pleats. I think it turned out really cute. This will probably end up on my website as soon as it goes live. I'll place the link in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all next Monday.